It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Hey, good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host this morning. I appreciate you joining with us. We're in our third segment on a Friday. Today is the 20th of September. Our topic in this segment is going to be the Benghazi walkout by Democrats. There was a hearing yesterday in which the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee was holding hearings, and they invited the parents of the victims of the Benghazi terrorist attacks to come in and speak to the committee about their children and what they expected and why they weren't getting answers and so forth and so on. We all know that the Benghazi cover-up has been a tragedy for our nation, and especially these parents. The parents are heartbroken to find that they're being lied to directly. I mean, one of the mothers was sitting there saying that, you know, Hillary Clinton walked up and Obama walked up at the when they were bringing the caskets out of the plane, and they promised her they would get to the bottom of it, they'd look into it, never even had the courtesy to get back to her. I mean, really, you know, that's inexcusable behavior. And, you know, if Obama can pick up the phone and call a guy and invite him over for a beer conference, you know, or call Trayvon Martin's parents, you're going to try and tell me you can't call the mother of a dead soldier who died fighting to protect the United States consulate? Really? Anyway, you know, even by D.C. standards, this is disgusting. The Democrats got up as soon as the parents were slated to speak. The Democrats got up en masse and walked out. Now, I don't know whether they were protesting or they were trying to show disrespect for the parents. I don't know whether they were, you know, I've heard some people say how they had to go make a vote. Well, if that's the case, then why didn't they just adjourn the hearing? Because those Republicans would have had to go to the vote too, right? I mean, it's not just Democrats that vote, even though it seems like that. So, irrespective of whatever else you can list as an excuse, it was inexcusable. You cannot defend the indefensible. You know, if there was any honor, any integrity, any ethics in the districts of these people, you would see every one of them removed from office, either by a recall to beat the election out or at the next upcoming election, because this is inexcusable behavior. There is no other way that you can quantify it. And I defy you to find one. Here's the list of the people who walked out. Carolyn Maloney from New York. Danny Davis from Illinois. Eleanor Holmes Norton from D.C. Now, this is the same sycophant who stood up there the day after the Navy Yard shooting in a press release, and in two separate instances, in a 5-minute, back-patting session, told us that D.C. is the safest city in the country. Huh? D.C.? I mean, I grant you, Chicago now owns Murder Capital as the title. New York is second. But D.C., the safest city in the country? Come on, lady. I mean, how stupid do you think everybody really is? Anyway, she got up and walked out. Gerald Connolly, Virginia. Jim Cooper, Tennessee. John Tierney, Massachusetts. Mark Pocan, or P-O-C-A-N, Pocan, I don't know how you pronounce it, Pennsylvania. Michelle Lujan, L-U-J-A-N, Grisham, New Mexico. Peter Welch, Vermont. Stephen Lynch, Massachusetts. Stephen Horsford, Nevada. Tammy Duckworth, Illinois. Tony Cardenas, California. And William Lacey Clay out of my home state of Missouri. Now, I got to tell you, for these people to do this was a punch, a slap in the face of these parents who came there to do nothing other than seek answers to why their child was dead, and no one was willing to give them the answer as to why and how and under what circumstances. I'm going to play you a 3-minute segment, which is the father of Ty Woods when he talks about his son. Now, this is a kind of a neat story because he's explaining here, right there to the committee, how he's tired of the smoke and mirrors of their lies. And it was a phrase his son used when he described and talked about the issues surrounding being lied to by, those people who are either in authority in his case, or his upper military commanders, or in this case, we're being lied to by Congress, and he's being lied to by Congress and asking questions about his boy. I mean, what father doesn't want to know how my son died and why is it being covered up? Anyway, I want you to hear this. It's about 3 minutes, so it's really worthwhile listening to. He tells a story about how Ty Woods lifted up this guy by the neck, who was his superior officer, apparently. And he said to the guy, "No more smoke and mirrors." I'm sure he said it a little bit more colorfully than that, but we're on broadcast radio, and we can't tell you what he really said. And he says that, he goes on to suggest that Ty might actually be in heaven right now, figuratively doing the same thing to the people who are withholding the truth and lying about what happened in Benghazi in September. Listen to this topic, or this father. The guy's heartbroken. I can't blame him.
Ty was a SEAL among SEALs. He was an alpha male among alpha males. We sat around when the bodies were coming in with several of his SEAL friends, and we were exchanging stories, like what you're asking for. They exchanged a story with me that I had never heard before. And one was that Ty was two things: a man of incredible physical and moral strength. He would not allow what they would refer to, or he would refer to, he would use the word smoke and mirrors. He would not allow any breach of integrity. He could bench press over 500 pounds. You've seen a picture of his arms, okay. Obviously a recessive gene. And once someone in authority lied to him, gave him smoke and mirrors, he took that strong Navy SEAL arm of his, lifted the person up by this part of their body, and said, in Navy SEAL language, I'll paraphrase, "Don't ever lie to me again. No more smoke and mirrors." If Ty, and I seriously think there's a very good chance up in heaven he might know more about this hearing than anyone in this room knows right now. He might know about the lack of integrity. He might take one of those people who, you can kind of paint the picture, who's shown smoke and mirrors, and figuratively speaking, lifted that person up and said, "No more lies, no more smoke and mirrors." That's what Ty would want. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Wow. I feel for this father, because having my own children, and one of whom has served our military, including overseas in Afghanistan, I could only imagine the pain of that man when he was told to show up and pick up the body of his son. And when he asked for answers, all he got were lies and more lies. And when it became apparent that they were lying, he still could not get the truth. I applaud him for his ability to come out there and have that discussion and share his memories of his son. I got to tell you, you couldn't blame that guy if he were to walk into that hearing like that guy did in the Navy Yard and start taking them people out. I mean, here he is being lied to over and over and over and over and over. His son's honesty and integrity, his son's reputation being dragged through the mud by a bunch of people who have never even put on a pair of boots. I'll tell you. For the record, if you don't know about it, his particular mom was 38 years old when she had him. And she was unable to have children for the longest time. That man and his wife tried and tried and tried. She couldn't have kids. And then along came her only child, Ty. Her only child. Where is the honor? Where is the integrity? Where is the truth? How can people be so inherently evil that they would withhold that from a parent? I watched another video about one of the other guy's mothers. And I got to tell you, the woman just had one question. Why can't you tell me the truth? No one has contacted them from Department of State. They never hear from anyone in the Department of State. Their phones never ring. They never receive email. They never get answers from the Pentagon. The only contact they ever have is from one of these House committees who invites them to come down and testify. But the answers never come. Do we not owe that to these parents? Do we not owe that to the parents of the SEAL Team 6 who were killed in the helicopter crash? We owe them explanations. Because those men put their lives on the line for us. For those people who are standing there, the beneficiaries of their sacrifice, their risk. And those men died under the same hand of command that now wants to pretend they never existed. I got to tell you. I mean, you imagine that that George Washington would have acted that way? Do you imagine that any of the great generals, Patton or MacArthur, would have acted that way? You may not have agreed with everything that those men did, but they were men of honor nonetheless. And they would have had the courage to call that parent up and say, I made a mistake. I made a decision that was the wrong one. And your son, the good warrior that he was, he followed my direction. And he paid with his life. And I'm sorry. That's all these parents want to hear. That's all they want to hear. How and why did my son die? They're not interested in making political hay. They could care less. Maybe now they are because they've been introduced to the evil of these people who are currently occupying our government and are occupying our nation. And make no mistake about it, folks. They may be dyed-in-the-wool, born in the USA Americans, but they are occupying our government. The orders to stand down, irrespective of the circumstances, that was a betrayal of everything and every ethos that a SEAL stands for. Their motto is, no one gets left behind, alive or dead. Can you imagine if the other SEALs, who were literally right across the Mediterranean, I mean, from a military deployment perspective, that's a hop, skip, and a jump. We know that this battle raged for hours and hours and hours as they begged for help, and they were told, and our troops, in support of them, were told, stand down repeatedly. Now, the cover-up continues. They can say all they want. There was no stand-down order. But every military mind, every military person who is willing to speak out is telling us that's not the truth. Everyone. And if there's not a cover-up, then how is it that John Kerry refuses to allow Congress to question the Benghazi survivors? How is it Obama could have ordered the names changed of the Benghazi survivors and hid them from Congress? What else would the reason be? Why are these survivors being forced to sign non-disclosure agreements? Why are their families being threatened? Why have the people involved from the Department of State who completely and utterly dropped the ball not been dealt with? Oh, they got suspended for a little while with pay, and then they reassigned them to some other job somewhere else. Because they didn't want those people to step up and say, hey, I was ordered to stand down. So they give them a job as a bribe to shut them up. How is it that Hillary Clinton came out and Barack Obama came out 2 weeks after the event, stating at an open, worldwide televised UN meeting that the video was responsible for the deaths of these men? 2 weeks after, when he knew 20 minutes into the attack that the video had nothing to do with it. That tells me, people, that it was an open and blatant, willful lie. He knew, and he lied. And they died. Hillary knew, and she lied, and those men died. Every spokesman they sent out, the UN, whatever the heck her name was, I can't even think off the top of my head, who went out there and on 6 Sunday morning programs reiterated the same lies over and over and over again. And honestly, I don't know her motivation. I can't tell you what's in her head. But if she didn't know, she surely suspected that video was really not to blame. Susan Rice. She's surely suspected. She's been an insider in this administration for a long, long time. Don't tell me either she didn't know or couldn't have known. And Hillary didn't even have the courage to come out and do it herself. She sent her instead. Where are the witnesses? To this day, we don't know where they are. Their names are hidden from Congress itself. If the only other one of two organizations that are supposed to be co-equal partners in government, sharing power, keeping one from becoming tyrannical by checks and balances from the others, if Congress, the lead investigative group to look after the executive or the judicial, cannot get these survivors into a subpoenaed hearing, all hope is lost for us. It's not Benghazi. It's what Benghazi is teaching us, exposing to us, and showing us about our government and the people who are running it. It's not Benghazi, folks. It's the fact that Benghazi has exposed the myriad of writhing, teeming snakes that make up the secret. And Benghazi is only one of many. You can add Fast and Furious to that. It's the same thing over and over and over. The dogs of war. Did you ever hear that Pink Floyd song, The Dogs of War? I mean, to me, that song epitomizes the entire problem that we have here. All right, we're going to break. When we come back, we're going to explore Dr. Ben Carson. He put out an op-ed in the Washington Times the other day, and I liked a lot of what he had to say. We're going to talk a little bit about it. We're going to read about it. We're going to try to evaluate it. And he's discussing directly Obamacare and how lawmakers can prove their backbone by defunding it. I think he expresses what a lot of us are thinking. I like his even-handedness. You can find us on americasvoicenow.org. You can also find us at facebook.com/America's Voice Now and on youtube.com/America's Voice Now. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.